back again. Konbanwa, genki desu ka? Good evening, and how are you? I've been wanting to record this video for a long time, but it's hard for me to explain this in a way that many people will understand. I will admit that some of my communication skills are not what I'd like them to be, because I didn't grow up really socializing like other people did. I was usually to myself. I had fringe ideas and a fringe nature, so I didn't get a lot of time to socialize with people. So, over the years, I've been cultivating my social skills. I will admit that my my emotional IQ is not where it probably should be, but I'm working on that. Anyways, the topic that I want to discuss today is going to be fantasy versus reality. And the reason why I want to get into this is because it is a fundamental. With my channel, I plan on, like I said, relating the fundamentals of life to relationships. Because I think people, like I said before, are so far removed from the fundamentals that they have this unrealistic expectation of things, and they also try to live their lives by this realistic expectation. So let's break this down. Reality. A lot of people. There are several different kinds of reality, and the reason why that is because of our universe. Our universe has 3 dimensions, so reality can be seen in a multitude of ways because it is omnidirectional, which means that everything about reality is relative. What I mean by relative is that we don't know what's going on Jupiter, but we can pull out a telescope and see Jupiter, but we can only see a certain face of Jupiter. We can't see what's going on the other side, but we can see what's going on one side. But Jupiter also has an atmosphere to where you cannot penetrate to a certain depth. So let's say that we did figure out a way to, get to Jupiter and to land on Jupiter. The reality that is experienced on Jupiter will be different from the reality from which one was seeing Jupiter. But this reality still exists within our universe. I know this sounds really technical and it sounds really far-fetched, but I'm gonna get to it, believe me. And also time is different because, as you know, there are planets that exist in different orbits around the sun, versus, Mars versus Uranus. Earth days is how they classify the revolution of how many days that you will see the sun at certain positions on these planets are completely different. And this is due to the elliptical orbit around these, around the sun. But anyways, so let me get to the point of this, because I want to explain reality first, and I use that far about way to explain it. But this is no different than how things work on Earth, because all these laws apply still the same. Reality is relative, meaning that I actually had a conversation with my brother yesterday about this, and we were talking, and I was giving him some insight on my logic and thinking and my philosophies and the way that I saw things. And one of the topics that came up was reality versus fantasy, and I've been talking to people about this for a long time, but I figured I'd put it in a condensed form. Hopefully it makes sense. But anyways, what I explained to him was that reality is partially subjective, because of the relative nature of reality. What I mean by this is that if me and you are standing next to each other and we're looking at the same object, even though we are experiencing and bringing in data into our brain to realize what the item is that we are experiencing, we are still seeing it from two different perspectives. And we will never see anything in this reality due to the relative nature of how the universe works in the same exact perspective. That goes back to my analogy about being on the face of Jupiter versus witness it from Earth through a telescope. Even though we are experiencing the same reality, the relative nature of the universe causes us to not see from the same perspective. Now, this isn't a scapegoat or excuse for people to not accept the reality. This is just an explanation of how reality works. But anyways, so there are certain things that you have to accept about your reality, which may not be true for others' reality. This goes back into my previous videos. If you notice that I am building up on a rhetoric, I'm building up a rhetoric on self-accountability, humility, power and respect, and human nature. These are very fundamental things, and they all tie into each other. You can't have one without the other. Because they are very important to understand your existence and very important to understanding your direction, and also the main point, very important to accepting your reality. Okay, so we then went on to talk about how me and him made it out of Detroit, and we were talking about a family member of ours who has not made it out of Detroit, and she's going through turmoil from being there. I don't know if I said it in I have said it in my previous videos. Here we go again. So what you allow is what you deserve. He went on to say that, certain people don't make the same decisions based on the same reasons. Now, on the surface, that is true because we are all individuals, but there is a catch to that many cannot argue. There is a terminology in biology that we like to call homeostasis. Homeostasis basically is the drive for a living entity to live. And humans, we are the pinnacle of homeostasis when it comes to our drive to live, because there has not been another animal or entity on this planet Earth who has erected and changed the surface of the Earth to fit their needs to the scale that we have, the same as humans, or we're the only species to do this. So we have the innate drive. The reason why I say it's innate drive, because it's perpetuated through generations of humans. We can see back in earlier settling ages that humans were cultivating the earth to meet their needs and being comfortable. And this goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. There is a certain level that we all reach, and that will reflect our level of understanding of self. Versus there is a biological portion of it. Then there is a social and actualizing portion of it. It breaks down to me in those three sections. But anyways, this goes into my topic: fantasy versus reality. A lot of people don't understand that fantasy is more than just science fiction, and reality is more than just what you understand. We all share a reality because we all live on this earth. So things that are happening in China do affect here in the United States, although at the same time our relative proximity of the point of the ground zero is going to determine how much it affects us. And that goes in many scales. It can be social, economic, political. It can go on many scales. So you can look at this as a relative to all things, because that's how our universe works off these fundamentals. So it will perpetuate through everything that you can possibly think of, because there is nothing in this universe that cannot escape the laws of this universe within itself. But anyways, I'm going a long about way to explain this, but I'm hopefully that you guys will get this. Okay, so the way I see it is that we all have homeostasis, and when, like I said, that's the drive to live, propagate, and survive. You know, we're going to do what's in our nature that we think is the best way to give us the best optimum experience of life, so that we can bring children into the best optimum experience of life as well. So we are going to do things to cultivate a future that is better than the one that we experienced and the one that we previously known, that to be history. With that said, it's so many layers to this, but I'm trying to tie it all in. Fantasy versus reality. Our reality that me and my brother experience is the same reality to a scale, because once again, I said that relativity is, you know, you will never see things the same, but there is a point at which we all come to, and that is our decision making. That is probably the only relative point that we come to, but this point does not exist in reality. This point exists in our fantasy. Our fantasy, the definition of a fantasy is something that does not exist, that is sometimes outlandish and cannot be readily seen in the reality that we experience. So it's almost the antithesis of what already exists. It's the complete opposite. It's things that we imagine. But I explained to him that that is also a different plane of existence. But I'll make a whole nother video on that. And this is just my philosophy. These are not theories. These are just hypotheses based on what I experienced. These are observational hypotheses. But anyways, one thing that is common across the board, like I said, is our decision making when it comes to humans. When we have a thought in our head, that is the fantasy world, because it does not exist in this reality. When we make action towards our fantasies, and fantasy is such a socially misconstrued word, but what I mean by fantasy is once again things that do not exist on this plane of existence. You can fantasize about being a billionaire, but you are not a billionaire. But how you become that is you have to plant the seed that we all have, and that is the decision that we are going to go in that direction to acquire that. This goes back again to you deserve what you allow, but you also, the opposite side of it, you do not deserve what you will not allow. This is why I don't have a lot of empathy for people, because everyone has the decision to make a choice based on their desires. And you also have a choice not to make a decision based on your desires. But that is still a choice. I forgot which philosopher said this. I believe it was Descartes. But I believe he said that a choice, not making a choice, is still a choice. And this is very true. If you do not do anything about your reality, it is therefore going to remain in a fantasy world, because you are not actively manipulating the reality based on your drive innately to change things. This is why people, you know, I see people complain and stress out about things, and they, you know, talk about what they're going to do and what they want to be, and they go home and sit on the couch. I feel no empathy for them. I can sympathize with their situation, because a lot of people do go through a lot of things like depression, you know, anxiety. We all have issues. You know, we have external forces that are always fighting against us, but that is life. That is life. You are human, just like everyone else. So you are subject to the same ills, highs and lows of human existence, the human condition. But what separates us as humans is our willpower to bring out our fantasies into a world where we can manifest those thoughts. But anyways, now when it comes to the baseline decision making, It goes back to what you want to allow, what you will allow. We all have the ability to say no. There is nothing in this world, to my known existence, there's nothing in this world that will prevent you from saying no. Think about that. There's nothing in this world that can prevent you from saying no. There's nothing in this world that can prevent you from not accepting something. Or there's also nothing that can make you accept something. Even if someone has a gun to your head and say, you better do X, Y, and Z, you have the option to say no. Now, is it intelligent to say no? That can be subjective. Is it a good decision? Based on the circumstances. But the point I'm making is that you have the ability to say no. No is a very powerful thing that many people will not use. I am not saying that people don't tell other people no, because we do it all the time. There are a lot of things that we don't agree with that we won't go through, or we won't be around, etc. What I mean by no is there are circumstances that you can say no to with your actions. If you are not, once again, and no answer is still an answer. So let's think about this. If no answer is still an answer, this goes back to Occam's razor. You know, the most simplest answer is more likely the right answer. If you don't say no, you're saying yes. Because once again, no answer is still an answer. And if the prompted answer requires a yes and no, which most things can basically break down to, if you are not saying no, you are saying yes. So when people, when my brother was trying to make the excuse of, you know, people go through things, we go through poverty, but how did we make it out? That's what I asked him. How did we make it out? Because we made sacrifices. That's how we made it out. I said to him, we chose to say no to accepting the condition of our lives. He said a few other things, you know, like he didn't want to go to college and he didn't have any trades, so he joined the military, etc., etc. But I tend to look at it a little bit more simpler. I looked at it because I look at it this way. I felt that innately my environment was not going to give me the best opportunity to do what I was put here to do as a human. And that is propagate the species to the best outcome that I see fit as a human being. This goes back once again to homeostasis, and this goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I can't make excuses. I can't make excuses for grown adults who have power and responsibility. See how my videos tie in? Power and responsibility. I can't make excuses for people who are saying yes to things by their actions. Not verbally, because people can tell you anything. Once again, it's been said plenty of times. This does not only apply to women. This applies to men too, because we're all human to a base level when it comes to our desire and our propagation of such into the reality. Our actions speak a whole lot more than our words do. So even though you have all these fantasies about what you want to be and what you want to do with life, if you are not actualizing this into the reality, you are saying yes to being a failure. That's simply how this works. Your reality and fantasy is based on a yes and no. Keep that in mind. But anyways, I have other things to do. This has been the Wolf in Beta Clothes. I am going to be starting another channel here soon. I know I don't have a lot of videos on this one, but I feel it's a need because I have a separate side of myself, which isn't what I wanted to gear this channel towards. So I'm going to create another channel. But anyway, don't forget to hit the like button. Like I said, I'm not going to really ask anybody for any money, but if you feel a need to donate, we can set something up. Cool. Don't forget to share, because I think this message can find people in a position where this could be beneficial. And knowledge is definitely power. I learned that at an early age. But anyways, like, comment, share. You have any input, I'll converse with you. I'm not unreachable at this point. I don't have enough followers to be unreachable at this point. But if you want to have a discussion about this, we can. If you feel like you want to just drop a comment to say you're doing good work, that's cool too. I appreciate all the people who subscribe. I appreciate the people who have commented. It is very much appreciated by me. It means a great deal to me because I see that people are interested in the content. Also, if you feel that I am wrong, I'm not going to kick you off or ban you or anything, as long as you're not being disrespectful, because I'm not a disrespectful person. Give me a thumbs down. Leave a comment saying where I'm wrong. I don't mind it. I'm always accepting of a greater knowledge than mine. So if you have something to add that could help this video be pushed along, most definitely do so. But anyway, this has been a Wolf and Beta Close. Peace be with you, and may you have a good day.